All right, let's talk Florida Gators. Obviously, the Gators made massive headlines a few days ago when they hired John Summerall to be the next head coach down in Gainesville, but they're not done, of course, making splash moves. They just made an incredible hire to fill out one of the most important positions on their staff. We'll get to that news plus some interesting data as always. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Florida Gators obviously were linked to a bunch of different coaches, whether it was Drinkowitz at Missouri, of course, Lane Kiffin tied to Florida, and then John Summerall was recently named the head coach for the Gators. Defensive-minded guy, was a linebacker in college, defensive coach, defensive coordinator, linebacker play extraordinaire. He's coming to elevate his game. Obviously was in a group of five, coming up to the Power Five, to the SEC, to the Florida Gators. He does have familiarity with SEC football for sure, but it's clear he needs, being a defensive-minded coach, the right OC, the right offensive coordinator, right? You got to get that hire right. If you're a defensive-minded coach, your offensive coordinator is the most important hire you're going to make. Likewise, if you're an offensive-minded coach, your defensive coordinator hire is the most important one you're going to make. And we've got news about the Florida Gators making their hire, and boy, oh boy, did they knock it out of the park. Let's get to the reporting here, courtesy of Pete Thamel. On X, he said, sources, Florida is expected to hire Buster Faulkner as the school's next offensive coordinator. He's the successful OC at Georgia Tech who brings SEC experience from two stints. Again, a little typo there from Thamel. TO should be TWO, but two stints at Georgia. Listen, I think Faulkner is an A-plus hire, knocking it out of the park. So anytime you're trying to bring in a coach, especially to the SEC, you want a guy who has SEC experience, a guy who knows the game, knows how to recruit, knows the atmosphere, knows the structure, right? When you bring guys outside of the SEC into the SEC, it takes time to figure it out because it's just a different world. Look at Kalen DeBoer with Alabama, for example. Takes over a stacked Nick Saban team 2 years ago, has some struggles, has some issues, has some problems recruiting, team has a disappointing season. Why? Even though they have a talented, super talented Saban roster, because he's not familiar with the SEC, doesn't know the recruiting landscape, doesn't know the matchups, as well as a guy who's just born and bred in the SEC, and Faulkner is that kind of guy. Let's pull up his resume right here. Got this off Wikipedia. So this is his coaching career. Again, he was a Valdosta State guy, is where he went to college. He was a student assistant there. In 2006, he was a GA at Georgia, so he started his big-time career with the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC. Went to back to Valdosta State to get his coaching career started. Worked his way up the ranks through Valdosta State, Central Arkansas, Murray State, Middle Tennessee State, Arkansas State, all the way up to Southern Miss. And then for 3 seasons, he was a quarterbacks coach, quality control guy from with the Georgia Bulldogs, or worked with the quarterbacks, I should say, and was a quality control guy with the Georgia Bulldogs. So again, this is a guy who knows the SEC. He's from the area. He's from the Southeast. He understands what the football is like, how it needs to be played. He got his first big coaching opportunity, being a graduate assistant. For those of you who aren't familiar, a graduate assistant is a guy who basically works hand in glove with a coordinator mainly and does all the grunt work, all the film cut-ups, all of the just creating note cards, taking notes, right, copying everything down. You're basically a gopher. But there's so much football you can learn. You become a sponge. And if you're really into it, like some GAs obviously are, it's what accelerates your career. And that's what happened at Georgia when it comes to Faulkner. He became a sponge of elite football when it comes to the SEC, worked his way up through the ranks, got another shot with the Georgia Bulldogs, much higher up the food chain, left Georgia to go to Georgia Tech, where he was outstanding as the offensive coordinator for the Ramblin' Wreck. Again, people kind of sleep on Georgia Tech a little bit. They've been a feisty good football team, not because of their defense, it's because their offense has been outstanding. Haynes King, obviously quality quarterback with the Georgia Tech, with his Georgia Tech squad, and obviously Faulkner played a huge role working with King, setting him up for success, doing a great job working with the quarterback. So again, another element there. You've got a guy in Faulkner who did wonderful things for Haynes King. Obviously, DJ Lagway, you're going to need the OC to do wonderful things with him. Looks like the Florida Gators knocked it out of the park when it comes to this hire. We got more data to break down when it comes to this hire from the Florida Gators, but first, Florida fans, in the comment section below, I want to hear from you. Grade this offensive coordinator hire for us. Do you love it? Do you give it an A+? Do you hate it for whatever reason? Maybe you do. Give it an F. Are you in like wait and see mode? Give it a C, C+, or you're just lukewarm or whatever it may be. Grade this hire for the Florida Gators and give us your reason why. Maybe you got some insights. Maybe there's something I overlooked when it comes to this hire from Georgia Tech. Put it in the comment section below. Again, grade this hire for us. But let's get into some of the data here. I want to talk about the data. And this is the balance from Georgia Tech on an analytical basis last year. So this is courtesy of True Media, great analytics platform. We love working with True Media on a great website on this channel. We love working with them. And we have on the x-axis there, the horizontal axis is rush expected points added, EPA per play. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with EPA, expected points added, it's our favorite analytical metric on this channel, because when you get deep into the weeds, sometimes raw numbers don't tell the whole story. We'll get to the raw numbers in a second, but let's say it's 3rd and 20 and you run a draw and you get 15 yards and now you punt, right? Is that a winning play? No, it's not a winning play. It didn't help you out at all. You got a 15-yard rush though, so it helps your yards per rush, it adds to your total, but it didn't get you a first down, you got a punt. But if that's, say, it's 3rd and 20 and you run for 21 yards, that obviously is a winning play. So EPA will factor in the first play where you don't get the first down as a nothing burger, a 0, and it'll give a positive grade to the second play. That's what EPA kind of factors. So back to the graphic here, we've got rush EPA per play on the x-axis and EPA per drop back pass on the y-axis. And you'll notice something here. Georgia Tech is insanely balanced. They have the highest rush EPA per play in the ACC last year. Florida State and really Virginia Tech were the only two even in the ballpark, right? They were clearly outclassing everybody else in that conference. But even with the focus on running the football on an efficiency basis, again, this is per play, their EPA per dropback was also outstanding, top 4 in the ACC. And again, some of these programs, you look at Florida State, Miami, those are QB-friendly offenses geared to put up a lot of passing yards. Carson Beck, of course, with the Hurricanes, Castellanos, and that kind of fluky Gus Malzahn offense at Florida State. Those programs are set up for deep passing yards, a lot of productivity from the quarterbacks, lining up the scoreboard. Georgia Tech, much more balanced, and that is also the key. When you're looking for a good offensive coordinator, it's true whether it's college football or in the NFL. You hear it more in the NFL game, but I think college football is going to become more like this as the college game becomes much, much more like the NFL game, like we talk about all the time on this channel, is that you need the marriage between the run game and the pass game. You can no longer be, in today's college football landscape, heavily skewed one way or the other. The idea of you can be a power football team and run the football 50 times a game and throw it only when you have to doesn't work anymore. Used to work for better part of a century in college football. Doesn't work anymore. Same thing. You can't be an air raid team. You can't be Steve Spurrier, right? Throwing the ball 60 times a game. Not saying he was doing that, but you guys know what I'm talking about, of course. That doesn't work either. You need balance. You need efficiency on both sides. You need the run to set up the pass and the pass to set up the run. You need to call an inside run scheme, then a bootleg off of that, then a reverse off that bootleg, then a split zone scheme with that same look, and then a standard drop back quick slant, standard play action. You need to run duo, gap. You need to do a lot of different things. You need to be versatile and be able to tie everything and link everything together. And then Faulkner did that for the Rambling Wreck. You can look at the numbers again on an efficiency basis in terms of offensive and defensive. No one was more consistent than the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets last season. Phenomenal job, again, from an analytical perspective. But let's look at raw numbers, right? Let's see how he does on an actual, traditional rush yards per rush, yards per passing attempt. And you can see in the x-axis there's yards per rush. Again, this is in the ACC last year. And this is on the y-axis there, yards per passing attempt. And once again, no surprise, Georgia Tech, top of the list. They have the highest yards per rush by far in the ACC, absolutely crushed it. And they have the highest yards per passing attempt except for Florida State. Again, they run that Gus Malzahn fluky kind of passing offense. They put up a lot of numbers, a lot of volume, a lot of deep shots. Georgia Tech, though, right there, right next to Florida State, not far behind. So again, you can see what Faulkner did for Georgia Tech was A-plus work, marriage of the run and pass game. Florida State was pretty good offensively. And Gus Malzahn is a long-time successful offensive coordinator. We all know that, right? He's a good offensive coach. Faulkner was better. Right? He's younger. He's more in tune. He did great things with Haynes King. So everything you want in an offensive coach, right? Working with the quarterback, unleashing his best traits, marriage of the run and pass game. And here's the best thing about Faulkner. Anyone who watched Georgia Tech, it's not a fluky offense, right? This is my one gripe with what Gus Malzahn does, is that it's a little fluky. It's got a lot of trick plays. And listen, some of those times it can look real good, but sometimes, you run a double reverse pass and you lose 40 yards or you fumble it, right? Faulkner was a much more, I don't want to say base or standard, but it didn't rely so much on gimmicks or gadgets, however you want to call them, right? It was much more execution based. It was much more, we're going to run our concepts and our plays. We're going to do what we're good at. We're going to establish our identity. We're going to have adjustments week to week, but our goal is to be efficient, stay ahead of the chains, and put our quarterback in positions to be successful. And listen, Haynes King, much more of a runner in a lot of situations, but they also did some things in passing concepts to his strengths. And I think that's going to be a big part of working with DJ Lagway, is creating an offense around him tailored to his strengths and obviously whatever quarterbacks follow Lagway down in Gainesville. So all in all, in my opinion, this is an A-plus hire, right? You wanted a guy, first and foremost, who knows SEC football. If you bring in a coordinator or head coach that doesn't know anything about the conference, you're in for a world of hurt. That's just my honest opinion, because you're just going to get culture shock, just going to hit you right in the face. The talent, the speed, the environment, it's going to create all kinds of problems. You also want a guy who knows how to work with quarterbacks and set themselves up for success. Obviously, well, that's what Faulkner did at Georgia Tech. And I personally want guys who are good running and passing. I don't want just a passing guru. I don't just want a rushing guru. I want a guy who's balanced, a guy who knows how to marry both concepts. Because if you look at the best teams in football right now in college football, Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, right? They've got good balance across the board in terms of run game and pass game. Now, they may be a little leaning one way or the other depending on their personnel in the game, but overall, they're balanced. And that's what you want to be if you want to be a national championship contender, an SEC championship contender. In Florida, guys, it's the Gators. They will have the talent. They will have the opportunity. It's just, can they execute it? And I think right now, Summerall did a great job starting off his tenure with an A+ hire, bringing in Buster Faulkner from Georgia Tech.